You've scaled big teams, and a little bit of the secret of how you've been able to do that and build one of the biggest sales teams in all of Cutco is actually in this book. You've got a website, you're tracking this, you're reporting it. Mm-hmm. You basically have a model where leaders could know their team's dreams, and now they're actually assisting them and helping them achieve them.
We're not here just to work. We're here to live an amazing life filled with rich relationships, and work should be the vehicle for that. It should enable people to do that. I love not having a conversation about their output or their production, because if we're talking about these dreams that they're experiencing, I just know they have to be thriving in the workplace if they're doing those things. In the past, when I was a younger manager, I was trying to get people motivated, and then you can do these awesome things, and flipping the table on that to say, what are the things that give you that inspiration, motivation, and then saying, let's do those. How can you do those? Oh, well, you probably need to perform here. But that was something that they would figure out on their own, right? Mm-hmm. And so now all I'm doing is assisting in helping them live the life of their dreams, not, you got to do this for me.
Welcome back to another episode of Do Business, Do Life. Have Dane Espegard here with us today. Welcome to the show, Dane.
Happy to be here.
I know today you're also a published author, so we're getting into the dream machine today. You've been incredibly successful at Cutco, and then on the Vector side, kind of on the business side, the organization side, you've scaled big teams of, I think what most would say is like younger, not as seasoned business people, typically kids in college or fresh out of college, and to be able to lead a big group of people that, maybe from a business perspective aren't as mature as some others. Takes a lot of talent, takes a lot of intention, takes a lot of organization, and a little bit of the secret of how you've been able to do that and build one of the biggest sales teams in all of Cutco is actually in this book. And so let's start there because, in business, you hear about goals all the time. And in the book, you talk a lot about dreams and the importance of writing them down, manifesting them, putting a plan in place to achieve them. So, Dane, is a goal and a dream the same thing, just called two different things, or do you define those differently?
I think they can be. I define them differently, and the reason I'm intentional with the language around whether it's a goal or a dream is, for me, I grew up in direct sales, so 18 years old on, and goal setting was just a regular occurrence, weekly, monthly, quarterly. And so there's a little bit, I think, that can get stale around just goals in general. And I also think it's very natural for people to set goals that we know are absolutely within reach, because deep down, we want to hit our goal. If I'm sharing it with a supervisor or someone else, I want to look good and hit my goal. And so I think that, I don't know where I heard it, but the quote of, goal setting isn't about hitting the goal, but it's about who we become in the process. And I feel like if we're not setting goals that actually stretch us, we don't get the full benefit of that. And so I think in walks the word dream then. And when I use the word dream with my team, I think what it's meant to do is be a lot more freeing and ungrappled. To say, hey, let's just have some fun. What are some things that you think would be amazing to do at some point in your life? And that allows people to detach a little bit from reality, which I think is helpful in the big, if we really want people to think big and outside the box, I think dreaming can be helpful in that. So I think they both have their place. But I think the feeling that I want people on my team or others to feel when they hear the word dream is something that's uplifting, abundant, anything is possible. But at the same time, nothing that's obligatory. And I feel like sometimes with goal setting, that happens. We attach ourselves to it, and then there can be a negative feel occasionally with that. I don't want that, around the word dream. I want it to be very positive and abundant.
Yeah, as I think about it, a lot of what you said resonates because a goal feels like something you're supposed to do or have to do, like cleaning your room, when you're growing up. Or a dream feels like something you want to do or you aspire to do. Do you find just simply by switching the language around that, you're kind of unlocking this side of excitement that people typically don't get when it comes to goal setting?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that it's a lot easier to bridge the gap between personal and professional. And I think when we're talking about goals, especially, in the book, I talk about bringing this specifically to work teams. And I think people associate dream a lot more with personal. I feel like when I'm thinking about dream, it's, dream trip, dream experience, dream, someday I've thought about all these things. And I think that's where dream kind of unlocks the door into this whole world of possibility that work, hopefully then whatever our vocation or our current occupation is, can kind of become the vehicle then for us to be able to achieve these dreams that some are in the business world, but many of them are, in the personal world. When people hear dream at first, I think they think of just, a dream vacation or a dream house. And they think of these really big things. And in the book, we talk about it. It's not that. It's all these, many times, just small things that are new experiences, things I want to do, things I've said, oh, that'd be really cool. And one of the keys to this, I think, is helping people dream more, not necessarily bigger, but more. And I think that dream big is a topic we hear a lot, but not necessarily dream more, which means, hey, let me get 100 to 200 to 300 things down on paper to say, at some point in my life, if I experienced this, would it bring me joy and energy? And if so, I'm going to put it on the list. And, last year, I think on my list, I crossed off 25 dreams. So they can't be that large if there's 25 in a year. Right. But they were things like, go see a show at, the Sphere. Right. That was on my list. Right. Unbelievable. So that's just one of the things.
I think surface level, a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, I should set dreams. Oh, I should set goals. Like that is not a new concept. But what is really cool is the framework you go about doing it. And we dove in just to prep for this conversation. I was like, Dane, dude, you just blew my mind because what you're doing, I'm like, you've got a website, you're tracking this, you're reporting it. Mm-hmm. You basically have a model where leaders could know their team's dreams, and now they're actually assisting them and helping them achieve them. So I want to get into this, and I want to talk about kind of the before and after as this thing's evolved in your business. But let's go there. Give us here's the first time I kind of shared this concept of creating dreams to the team. And then how that's evolved over the years to where now it's actually powering a lot of the growth and momentum inside of the business.
Yeah. So when this started, this was all inspired by Matthew Kelly. He's an author. He wrote the book, The Dream Manager. I read it in 2007, but I had the opportunity to hear him speak at a conference, and he walked us through a dreams workshop. And so that was my first time putting pen to paper, coming up with 100 dreams and a 20-minute sprint type of deal. And it was super uplifting, but then I didn't do anything with it. Just like a lot of personal growth things, it's like a shot in the arm where you get excited and then you just go back to doing what you're doing before. But I would look at it every so often, but I didn't necessarily change my behavior as a result of it. And then 5-6 years later, I had the opportunity to move a couple times within Cutco-Vector and start some teams from scratch. And so as I was going through and starting another team from scratch, I went through and I was thinking about culture. And I was thinking, hey, I've done this a few times now. And I had my lessons from each team that I had built, the positives from each culture, the negatives. And each year I was reading more books. And so I went to it and said, what would be the culture that if this is the last team that I ever started, that I would still be excited and engaged 10, 20 years from now? What would that culture need to be for me? So it wasn't actually about the people. It was, I knew that if I was an engaged leader, my people would probably be having a good time. Right. And so I settled back on dreams. And part of this was also there was no point in my life where I'm like, you know what I'm born to do? I was born to be with a knife company. Right. So part of this was finding purpose within what I was good at and, where I had found myself. So when I moved, it started in 2013. And basically iteration one of this was two things. I'm going to help people create their dreams lists, which that gets people started. And then the second thing is I'm just going to be very committed to living my dreams out loud in front of my team. And my thought was get them started on a list. Some people will run with it, some won't. And if every time I accomplish a dream and I'm using that terminology, it will trigger people to go back to their dreams list and say, oh yeah, what was something I wanted to do? So at that time we had one, we'll call it location, like one franchise that was doing it, one office. And we had a team of probably about 20 to 30. Then we had 5 or 6 offices that we were doing this with. So at every time that all the locations would come together for like a quarterly meeting, we would talk about dreams. And then a couple years later, we started running our first ever dreams retreat, we would call it. And so it was an offsite. Everybody came together and it was 2 full days of only dreams. So we had a ton of space to create bigger lists, do stealing and sharing, which I talk about in the book, which created some deeper bonds within the team. And then we added, after a couple of years of that, we added the last part, which was taking action, right? And we all know that, the best time to take action is in a motivated state. And so we, at the very end of this, we would go through and say, all right, so what from that dreams list, what are 5 to 10 that maybe are within the cards this year? And then everybody would start doing a research. So we'd have just kind of call it a jam session for 2 hours. We'd put music on. People are just, Google searching flights and locations and different things. Cool. And then at the end of this, people would make a commitment. A lot of times they'd come up with 2, 3, 4 that they were going to do. But we asked everybody to end with a commitment on one dream that they're going to pursue over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. And then all of this was in Google Sheets. So I would have people's Google Sheet full of dreams. And you could imagine there was like 50 of them. It was super chaotic. I don't think any business can do that. I was super committed to that. So I would use it. So that's where it all kind of started. And then fast forward, we now have software for it. And so as I launched the book, I knew some sort of integration piece was needed if this was going to be scalable to other businesses. And so now we have the Dreams Vault, and this has been fantastic. So think Google Sheets. They're going to upload their dreams. So on the spot in a dreams workshop, they'll journal them and then they throw them into this Dreams Vault, this website. So on the user account, the team member, they can view all their dreams. If they want to pursue one, we call it activating the dream. They click on it and they add a bunch of sub-steps. So an example would be, hey, Brad, you said you wanted to run a marathon. What would have to happen for you just normal goal setting, right? What would have to happen for you to run a marathon? Well, you'd probably have to figure out which marathon. You'd probably have to sign up. You'd probably have to figure out a 16-week training program. You'd probably have to start training.
A lot would have to happen for me to want to run a marathon. Let's go. Just say. Football players don't run a lot of marathons. That's not.
Maybe I should have used a different one.
I'm with you.
So then they put those steps in there, and then they put desired dates. Right. So if I want to run this one on June, like last year, for instance, on my team, I had 5 or 6 people sign up for the Fargo, North Dakota Marathon. So they always like June 1st or something. So then they were putting these dates in there and they put it into the Dreams Vault. So then on the team leader side or the manager, whoever, they have visibility to every single person's dreams list. So my Cutco team, for instance, I have 73 people that are into the Dreams Vault and click on it even at any given time and see all their dreams. Now, they have the ability to set some private if they want, but most of them are available for me to see. I can use that for Christmas shopping. This is where I buy everybody's gifts right off their dreams list.
So cool. Give me some real examples of that. That's a cool idea.
So, some of them were as simple as, I'm going to use some very different ones. I've bought people voice lessons. I've bought people, one guy, I try and pick out the weird ones. One guy had on his dreams list that he wanted a cat tower for his cat. I bought the most epic cat tower you could find online. Pretty hilarious.
One of the dreams on here, this is great. And so this speaks to the diversity of, hey, that's like I can go to Amazon and do that, but he's just like, hey, I want to someday get my cat a cat tower. So that's could be a pretty
Brad,
quick one.
You'd be so surprised when people hear dream, they think that these are all these massive things. But when you start putting pen to paper, you'll actually notice a lot of these things I could do right now if I wanted to do them. I just haven't made the space for them, haven't made that whatever. So I've got a budget. I want to spend $200-300 on a gift, but it's a gift that they remember and they talk about. They say, you're never going to believe what Dane got me. What he gets you. This year I bought 2 people colonics. Colon hydrotherapy. Very weird, right? It was on their list. So I found a place in the Twin Cities. I got a couple people acupuncture. I got a couple people wanted a really nice standing desk. Yeah, so that gives you an idea on some of the different types of ones that are on there. Sometimes, I know you're a wine guy. I have some people on my team that have certain I'd really love to have this wine experience, or here are some bottles of wine I'd love to enjoy at some point in my life. And if I have the opportunity to make those things come true, I love that. I like picking health ones if I can. So if somebody on my team has triathlon or marathon, I love encouraging that because I feel like I get 4 to 5 months of superhuman that person, right? So if it's Brad, somehow you decide you in another life wanted to run a marathon, whoever's on your team gets a different Brad Johnson for those 4 months of training.
As a leader, I think it's so important. Your team has to know you care.
Yes.
And what better way than to figure out what matters to them and support it?
Mm-hmm.
It just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got a system and a way. Is this an annual thing you do with your teams? And then you just start tracking them throughout the year? How frequently are you doing this?
Well, so we do one offsite for us is in August. That's just the timing that works for us. So that's our annual dreams retreat. And there's also a ton, we're there 2 days, but we're really only in sessions for 6 hours. So there's a lot of just organized engagement time, right? Or connection time. And then we'll have touch points throughout the year. So those are opportunities. When I say touch points, it's 30 minutes here or there for people to add some extra things to their dreams list. But as long as they get those loaded in and then they have some dates to them, what I have access to then is in the Dreams Vault, I get reminders of when they have a date approaching within the next week. And a date could be something simple like, hey, Brad, you said that you were going to we're going to research different marathon training programs. And so I get an email once a week from the Dreams Vault, and all it will say, it'll have a list of any upcoming step for the next 7 days. And so I'll spend 5 minutes on a Monday just saying, hey, Brad, this is the week for you to figure out what the training program is. Excited to hear what you go with. And I might even do a search. I've run a couple marathons, so I would look and say, this is a real life example. I'd say Hal Higdon is like an old OG, really simple programs. You should look his up. Right. And so what that does is I heard this term recently from Brian McRae, of joyful accountability. And I love that word, joyful accountability, the joyful part, because the purpose of this is not to make it obligatory, but to be really awesome nudges forward to say, hey, remember we're going to do that? Right. Let me know how it goes. And that way I'm like a fly on the wall, but I'm their number one fan and supporter as they're going through it.
Yeah, it's accountability, but not like crack the whip behind you, shame you because you haven't got it done. It's like, dude, I'm here to support. Let's go. Here's a couple ideas. It's that cheerleader. I think one of the things that a lot of leaders underestimate about leadership or coaching is sometimes people just need to be inspired that they can do it. Mm-hmm. And just bring in that positive energy. And I know you've got that because I've hung out with you enough. Got a great sense of humor, so I'm sure you're throwing that in there too. What is the biggest or the most fun story for you where somebody threw kind of a wild dream that they didn't think they could accomplish on there, and then you kind of broke it down, eat the elephant one bite at a time and kind of were cheering them on? Do you have some big ones that people just knocked it out of the park on?
So there's one that comes to mind. I don't know how big it is as much as it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this with the team. But I also, what comes to mind when we think grandness, again, the age group for this team, I have a few different teams, but for this specific team, it is 18 to 25. Right. Yep. And so, we have within the last couple of years, we have a handful now. I think it's 6 that have purchased their first properties. And not property for them to live in, but investment property, duplex, triplex. And so that has been really neat to see people put that on their list and then say, what do I have to do for this? And then be able to help and say, hey, here's some resources, or here's some things, or here's some professionals that can kind of close that gap for you. So those have been some really big ones. A lot destination weddings have been neat to see people kind of getting married the way they want to get married. And not the way their parents want them to get married, which, I know is a touchy subject for some. But the one that really comes to mind was during COVID, we had this guy, Alex, who, as I'm saying this, I actually just went to the Republic of Georgia last weekend to wed. I got to do the ceremony. 2 people that are on my team. This guy, Alex Funk, I got to marry him and his wife in the Republic of Georgia at a ceremony last weekend. he ran a treadmill marathon during COVID. So all by himself, 26.2 miles. So he had said he wanted to run a marathon that year. And that was at the beginning of 2020, before we knew COVID was going to happen. And he said he was going to do it by the end of the year. He did this on December 31st. And so COVID happens. He's like, oh man, I don't think I'm going to be able to run a marathon. And then, as we're going through it, and I wasn't trying to hold his feet to the fire. I was like, it would be understandable if you couldn't run a marathon this year if marathons aren't happening. Right. And he's like, I want to do this. This guy, by the way, is the poster child for dreams now. His dreams list is like 1,500. He does like 80 to 100 dreams a year. And so he said, I'm going to do this on a treadmill. And I said, and by the way, I had trained for a marathon. That sounds like death. And then, we were talking more about it. And I said, if you're really going to do this, here's what you have to do. It's like, you have to have a laptop, you have to open it up, and you have to have a Zoom window. You have to have a Zoom open for your entire marathon. And we need to let everybody know that you're doing this. So I said, what makes a marathon great are the people cheering, right? It's you feel like death and there's people cheering you on. So he opened the Zoom, and his local newspaper in Minnesota wrote a story about him doing this. And people, I popped in, I want to say 8 or 9 times throughout his marathon. And every time I was on, there were other people popping in. I got the CEO of Cutco to pop in. He had no idea. He'd never met him before. So while he's running, he's like shocked by this, in our business, the celebrity pops on and says hi. So that one was one of the coolest experiences, to see him do. And when he finished the 26.2, there was like 35, 40 people on Zoom cheering him on. It was so cool to see.
That is cool. That's quite the commitment too. I didn't even know a treadmill marathon. Was that a thing before he did it? Because I've never even heard that.
I don't think so. I mean, he basically just said, at this time, I'm going to run 26.2 miles on the treadmill until I, that or I fall off, one of the two. So, and he got it done. He got it done.
I've, one of my good friends has a phrase. He says, language creates. And what you're doing is you're extracting the idea, you're putting it down on a piece of paper or electronically, right? And now sharing it with others, and you're manifesting it, right? And I've just seen it, and I know Cutco, very similar to the world I grew up in finance. A lot of thought leadership, a lot of like personal development and people pouring into it. I remember the first time I heard it all starts with mindset, and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of woo-woo, right? And then the older you get, the more you realize it's true and how much it matters. And because you've seen it play out, right? In business, you see it play out both ways, both on the positive and the negative side. And that's an awesome story. Do you share that much as far as when you speak about this?
When you asked me that question, I smiled right away because I have not shared that story in a while. And that was one of my favorite, I had a timer going off every 30 minutes to hop back on. And that was a really cool experience man, stuff like that bonds the whole team too, right? Yeah. Everybody that's on the team is telling their friends and family, you're not going to believe this guy at work. And so, it's like creating this culture. You're creating a culture in your team that other people are talking about and hearing about outside, right? So do you find that kind of the flywheel effect of one team member does it, then that inspires a couple other team members to do theirs, and it just kind of keeps kind of spreading in a good way, like a virus organizationally? Yeah, 100%. And like for the gifts that I was telling you I was buying, there are so many repeats on people's lists, because also when they're making their dreams list, they're around other people. So they're hearing from somebody, oh, you're putting that down, I'm going to put that down. And so that happens. And then also a lot of the health ones, we try and encourage people to do them together. So it'll happen where somebody makes a statement and says, I'm running a marathon, or I'm doing this Tough Mudder. And then inevitably other people will say, I have it on my list, I'm going to do it too. And the health ones I love so much. And a lot of those, I'll foot half the bill. I like it when they have skin in the game, but I might say, hey, Alex, I know you're looking at, Grayson was one of the guys that did the marathons last year. I said, Grayson, if you're going to do that marathon, I'd be happy to split the entrance with you. Like I'm so excited that you're going to do that. I know the impact that had on me when I was training and how cool it was for me to experience that. I'd love to be a part of that, even if it's just, paying $100 towards your entrance. And so again, it's a small thing. They don't need me to do it, but I also feel like now we're invested together in this cool experience for them to be able to do it.
Well, I love it. And this stuff matters. And what a cool, like back to creating a lot of fun in your 40s, I have to just assume as a leader, this was fun. Like hearing your team do stuff they didn't think they would ever do and challenging them and kind of raising the bar. Like, how fun is that from a leadership perspective?
It brings, I can truthfully, at 10 years ago, if you were to ask me if I was still going to be at Cutco now, I would have said no. And I just told my wife the other day, I was like, man, I'm having so much fun, and things didn't change. Work-life balance, income, all of that. If things just stayed the same, I could see myself doing the exact same thing I'm doing right now for the next 5-6 years and being totally happy with it. Because the freedom I have to be with family, but also just the experiences that I'm able to share with my people right now has been great. We now have a thing in our team where anytime that we go somewhere for like a work conference or anything else, I'm looking for things that are on my dreams list that are in that area, and then we're all doing them together. And so that also is I'm checking off more things on my list. And the other one of the residual things of this, or fringe benefits of this, is that it allows the leader. And I don't know that I talk about this in the book, and I don't know that I was aware of this early on, but when you grow up in a business, we often, if we're staying in that business, it's often because we saw somebody else's life and said, I want that. Right? Our good friend, Justin, was that for me in Cutco. He was only 4 years older. I remember being in college and being like, I want that guy's life. It looks like he's having a hell of a time. He seeseems like he's a good character. I got to know him more later, and I'm just kidding. He's a great guy.
Well, most of it checks out. I like those.
But and I didn't know how much money he was making, but I'm like, it looks like he's doing really well, and I want that. So I stayed in the business. But what happens then is once we reach a certain level, and again, this is my story, and I think this checks out for many people. What was interesting is I wanted that lifestyle, and as I started to experience it, I got quiet about it because I knew the people that were on my team maybe couldn't afford to live the same way that I was or have the experiences. And so what was interesting is I started actually dimming that light for these other people that were up-and-comers in the business because there was this weird feeling about it. As I started talking about dreams, it gave me permission to start sharing these epic experiences that I was having because I'm also supporting their dreams. And so what it allowed me to be was show up far more authentic with my team where there's nothing that I'm hiding. They know, hey, Dane's experiencing a dream right now. Dane's doing this. And that made it our relationship far more transparent and far more authentic. And I think that's really made a difference for me and also other leaders that have started doing this.
I love that. We haven't at Triad systematized it to the level that you have, but I can tell you from simply writing down champagne moments, one of the things we do at the end of every year, we'll do a team retreat, and then we'll do a Christmas party where, everybody connects. And we have some remote team members, so everybody's flying in and just celebrating a great year together. But I will tell you, some of the most powerful moments I've had at Triad are when our team stand up and share some of these.
Yeah.
And one I can think of last year that literally half the room was crying. We've got Megan on our experiences team, and young mom, younger kids, kind of just getting into sports. And her prior career was she actually worked at a funeral home. And the downside of work-life balance when you're running a funeral home is people don't stop dying. So she was literally 7 days a week tied to that business. She told me she hadn't been to one of her kids' sporting events like in a year. And so one of the things that really attracted her to Triad is DBDL, do business, but build the business in a way that it actually allows you to live life too. And she shared, she's like, I think she said I only missed one of my kids' games over the last year or something like that. So literally flipped a 180. And there was more to the story. She was getting a little emotional. Like everybody in the room was getting emotional. But I was like, this is the power of writing stuff down that matters and actually bringing it into reality. And who doesn't want to be surrounded by people checking off stuff that matters on an annual basis in business and the business that actually allows that to happen. And So when I dove a little deeper, like what's interesting is you were just Dane the dad trying to level up, for as long as I've known you. But as I got to understand a lot more on the business side, I'm like, dang, dude, this is powerful. We're going to have to use some of the stuff that Dane's doing with his team and infuse some of that into our team. And I know we'll have some conversations around that probably when we're done recording. But dude, it's just fun. Like, who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't want to let people level up?
It is that, and hearing people share their experiences is the fuel of this, right? And so when I think of where I think the biggest synergy is between this and what you're doing, DBDL, it's to say it's recognizing that we're not here just to work. We're here to live an amazing life filled with rich relationships, and work should be the vehicle for that. It should enable people to do that. Work should, I believe that an employer or place of work's greatest work is to raise the level of life that its employees can live. And I think that that's the responsibility number one. And then it's clients number two. I think it's the employees number one, because they're the individuals that are tapping in for such a large portion of their day and their week. And so when I hear people, Dane, I had the opportunity to do this and I did this, it's like, I love not having a conversation about their output or their production, because if we're talking about these dreams that they're experiencing, now obviously I can see reports and whatever else, but I just know they have to be thriving in the workplace if they're doing those things, right? Mm-hmm. And so what was different with this is in the past, when I was a younger manager, I was trying to get people motivated and go do this, and then you can do these awesome things, and flipping the table on that to say, what are the things that give you that inspiration, motivation, and then saying, let's do those. How can you do those? Oh, well, you probably need to perform here, but that was something that they would figure out on their own. Right. Mm-hmm. And so now all I'm doing is assisting in helping them live the life of their dreams, not you got to do this for me. Right. So it's the whole what's in it for them, which I think is the most important piece of this.
Well, and Dane, on another aspect, I'm just thinking through from your team members' lens. The litmus test we think about inside of Triad is true culture, not just the team member that's in the office. What's their spouse or significant other?
Yeah.
What are the conversations happening at home when they're not at the office?
Mm-hmm.
And my thought process around culture, and no culture is perfect, and rent's due every day. Yeah. But if they're going home and saying, "Yeah, Dane, remember you met him like a month or two back? Yeah, he just sent me a message and was asking how the marathon training was going. What a good dude! Like and now they're supported. Their spouse or significant other knows you care, and you're creating this whole vibe and culture where those conversations at home, it's like, what's the spouse think? What's the significant other think? I promise that's the sort of glue that holds them as a team member, where they're not out looking or job searching or looking for something else to do. So back to retention, which is, bring great talent in, but more importantly, keep great talent.
Yeah.
That has to be a huge retention tool for you guys.
Yeah, Brad, I would never have thought that this would be something that I would keep track of. But this year, on that point of like the spouse involvement or their outlook, because that does matter. So often somebody's working their butt off doing something, and they get home, and then their significant other's not supporting, right? Because they don't understand, or they're not seeing them burn themselves out. This year, I have 3 weddings that I'm officiating that are all people on my work team. And so I don't think I'd ever use that as a scoreboard of how the culture is. But this year I was honored. Frankly speaking, I don't necessarily want to go to all the, I want to support them on that day. But you understand, with young kids, it's like, oh, I feel like I need to say yes.
Your class. Well, the cool thing is if you're officiating it, you probably don't have to participate in all the stuff you're too old to participate in at the party, right?
You got it. It gives me a little bit of an out on that, but for me, it's like, man, that I feel honored when I get that opportunity, and I think that that's a testament again to both people's view, right? The person that's on my team and also the individual that's not.
Yeah. Well, time is flying, so I want to transition kind of more to the do life side here. But as I was thinking about just kind of the framing here, and you have a personal story with your grandmother, and I'll kind of tee up here, and then I want to get to the do life side for Dane. we had Tim Grover come out. And those that aren't familiar with Tim Grover, he was the performance coach for Michael Jordan and then Kobe Bryant, trained a lot of other pro athletes. And so he came out to our launch experience that we did in January. And he had one of the most powerful closes to any keynote I've ever heard. He had everybody stand up. He had them put their hand over their heart. And he basically said, feel that? And he literally, like, I will tell you, the room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. And he's like, you feel that? That you're not getting that heartbeat back. And literally he's like, and that next one. And that next one. And guess what? The next one isn't promised. So if you've got something big to do in life, back to dreams, he's like, don't wait for it. Go get it. Because tomorrow is not promised. And I know you talked about our mutual friend, John, that we had his celebration of life, but this stuff matters, man. And if you don't prioritize it, and if you do the someday is not guaranteed. And so I'd love, like, kind of share the personal story that you opened the book with too, or that directly impacted your family. And then because I think it's fun to talk about business ideas, but back to your point, like, you wrote them all down and then didn't do anything with them when you did the first time. But let's get to the taking action part and why this stuff matters.
Yeah, I think the story that I had in the book to begin with was with my grandmother, my mom's mom. And, she, and I didn't know, so I didn't have a relationship with her because of how early she passed. But this was all like, this is had, and I really believe I got a lot of my dreaming stuff from my mom. And this is her, what's happening with her life. And she said that her mom would constantly say, I want to go to all these places and visit all these things and do. And my mom grew up on a farm in rural North Dakota. So my grandparents, her parents were farmers. And anybody who knows, farmers or anybody in that industry, it doesn't stop. It's like the funeral thing that you were talking about. There's no weekends. They are 7 days a week, and it is sun up to sundown, and it's a grind. And so my mom said that she would hear her father often say, Mom and Dad having a conversation, someday, yep, we're going to do it, someday. My grandma was very rigid. My grandpa was this just people pleaser, but he was a hard worker, and just, yep, someday we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And then she passed in her 50s, and again, far too early, where they felt like they had a whole nother chapter of their life that was going to be there for her to experience the world. And, her entire world was North Dakota, rural North Dakota. They never went anywhere. And you can imagine if that's you, and you're my grandfather, Henry, who is also since passed, but he lived to be in his 90s, almost 100 years old. And I gotta believe that was with him his entire life, of just, not having the opportunity to experience those things. And so, and again, there's, like you said, your listeners are going to have so many of those examples that they can think of individuals in their life that have had that. But I just think of, especially with my kids, where I'm like, man, if something, God forbid, were to happen where, we just played pickleball this morning. My wife said, she goes, I don't know what prompted it, but she was like, I had a migraine a couple of days ago. She goes, if you fall over and pass out in the middle of this game, I don't know what I'm going to do. And we were joking around about it, but the idea of, hey, what if, right? The whole heartbeat thing of we don't know. I want my kids to be able to say, like, we learned how to live from our dad. And that's the thing where, every month I've got something in the calendar, big, small, whatever, in between, of just something as a family that we're looking forward to. So there's always this excitement of anticipation of such an awesome emotion, right? And just like, and sometimes it's even better than the real thing, right? Yeah. When you got a trip coming up and you're talking about it and you're planning it and then you experience it, it's great, but it's that anticipation. So we always have stuff on our calendar that we're working towards, that we're planning. And I think that we love, it might not be for everybody, but we love being in that place of what's next, what's exciting. And I think that it also teaches, I didn't want to be a parent that I was the person that told their kids you can do whatever you want in life, right? But then didn't model it. And, I learned from front row dads of lessons aren't taught, they're caught. And so it's not what we say, but it's what we do. And so I really wanted to model for my girls. And it's still a constant battle for me, right? The realist in me pops out all the time to say, I don't know if we can do this or if we should do this or if this is being good stewards of our money. And then the other side will come in to say, well, let's be calculated about this. And what are we modeling for our kids? And that to me is right now at the stage of my life, the thing that matters most. And I love telling my girls I get the opportunity to teach people about dreams. Like that to me is, is so fun.
Well, all of that resonates with me, man. And we do a ton of that too. Like Sarah and I looked at this year, and we've had it on the list to do a safari in Africa, and that's happening this year. And I'm so excited for the kids to experience that. And we're going to go serve over there and see like what it looks like to not have everything that you need. And but I think sometimes in life you worry too much about ROI or what's my return on this investment, or I've got to stash this away. I love, like, what comes to mind when you talk through that, it's return on memories or return on experiences. And these are memories where you're shaping your children or sharing memories with your spouse that they're priceless, man. That's the sort of stuff they'll be talking about at when they're saying the eulogy of like, Dad did this. I remember that and this, and he taught me this, and he made this a priority. I promise you, they're not going to be like, yeah, Dad did that extra. He closed that extra sale, and I got a pair of Nike shoes. That isn't going to be the conversation that's going on. And so I just love the intention there, and kind of creating the system that delivers that. That's really what I look at of what you've done. Is you've created a system that prioritizes what matters most, and that's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think leadership it's one of the greatest gifts of leadership is the accountability, right? For me, I'm a better me when I know people are watching. And so the whole thing of me writing this book and everything else has been the greatest source of accountability for me to continue to live life, because I'm supposed to be the dreams guy. And that's what I want. I need that reminder to say, hey, what are you doing now? What's the next thing? And I, in my eulogy, I just hope the girls say he lived. Right. Yeah. Not, he went through the motions, but man, he lived. That's the thing that I think resonates the most for me.
Well, on that note, and you might have already shared your definition, but the question I love to close the podcast is what is Dane's definition of do business, do life? So if you want to expand on that or rehash any of that, I'd love to hear your version.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we've been talking about. But when I think of do business, do life, I think I would sum it up as am I waking up excited and going to bed fulfilled? And if I'm doing those two things, I think I'm doing business and doing life in a great way. Waking up excited in anticipation for the day of what I get to do, who I get to do it with, right? I'm doing things in my zone of genius that I enjoy, that I get excited by and filled up by. And then I go to bed fulfilled because of the relationships, the time I spent, the conversations I had, and the production that I had, because that I do get lit up by that.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's simple yet eloquent. Waking up excited, going to bed fulfilled.
I'm going to tell my wife you said that. I don't think I've ever been called eloquent, but simple. People call me simple.
No, dude. Hey. You know what's funny about you is you show up very humble, but you have a ton of intelligence. And I'll tell you, you can't have a sense of humor. Like, this was a pretty dialed back day. And I want you all to know, like, if you're watching this on video or listening on audio, Dane could have done a 60-minute stand-up routine and you would have been rolling, because you are one of the most naturally hilarious people I've ever met. Actually, I was talking with our mutual friend, Brian, who happens to be Triad's general counsel. And I told him this was coming up. So I think you guys crossed paths in college, right? Was that where you guys met?
Yeah. Yep.
What a small, weird world. But yeah, Brian also concurs you're one of the most naturally hilarious people he's ever met. So
I appreciate that.
Round two, we'll have you do stand up for us, man.
Okay. Well, and that's what I was going to say. I just, sometimes if I'm off the cuff or letting it loose, we'd have to censor some of this.
Yeah, that's okay.
And that's,
Well, I mean, you're not like Dave Chappelle level of
no.
appropriate, but hey, that's okay. Sometimes you got to work some of that in.
That's right.
Well,
that's right.
Hey, dude, I know you're holding back from some pool time with your wife and daughters that are waiting for you. So I don't want to get in the way of that. But as always, just love our conversations. Always learn something new. Always have a good time. So thanks for hopping on here, sharing your wisdom. And I know this is going to help a lot of advisors out there. And I know also you were kind enough, we'll throw it in the intro, to share. I believe you call it the Thought Joggers, that has 1,000+ dreams, that I'm guessing a lot of these have been shared over the years of you doing this. So those that want to run with this will have a great start to kind of get the wheels turning for them.
Yeah. And I'm also starting to do this next week, I'm starting to do monthly free dreams workshops online. So if somebody, follows me online on Instagram or whatever, they'll see me post about it. But I'm going to start doing that my mission is getting more people dreaming. So those are going to be free 90-minute once a month. We'll go through a few categories and people, they'll be rated PG so people can invite kids and get some more dreams out there.
Love it, man. Well, I'm going to be talking to our culture team about this. So don't be surprised if Fee Tried members pop on there and we look at how we can expand on the champagne moments and systematize it a bit more, because I love a ton of the ideas you shared today. So, well,
Perfect.
dude, grateful as always. Thanks for hopping on here. And on that next RV trip, Kansas, it is a destination. So make sure
we're hitting Omaha in May.
You can get there through Kansas for the most part.
Right. That's right. We're hitting Omaha, so we'll be coming through the area.
Let me know, for real. You've got a place to stay if you'd like. We don't have an RV hookup, but I'm sure there's one close by. Maybe we'll put one in just for you.
You'll be our stop every time on the way up. It'll be good.
All right, dude. Till next time.
All right. Thanks for the time, Brad. Great talking.
Hey, dude.